Have you ever sensed that there was just something off with certain spiritual paradigms? Like you suspect somehow that love and light is somehow hindering you instead of helping? Are the narratives keeping you stuck instead of setting you free? Now, what if that white light isn't actually the ultimate destination, but rather a bypass that is keeping you from your true healing and power? Today, I'm diving into the shadow side of spiritual bypassing and how to break free from that to have real transformation. I'm Derek. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist and intuitive. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. So, the first part I'll dive right into is the white light illusion. The first way that this illusion works is through the just think positive movement. This suppresses real healing by promoting spiritual bypassing, encouraging people to avoid or suppress or deny difficult emotions, trauma, shadow aspects under this guise of maintaining high vibes. Sounds good, right? But what this ultimately does is it creates inner fragmentation, unresolved pain, and a cycle of stagnation because true transformation requires that confrontation and the integration of the full spectrum of human experience, not just the light. Forced positivity is always going to fail you. The reason for this is that it completely invalidates several aspects of your life experience. It's not taking into account the full human experience. Full and true healing does require you to acknowledge and process all emotions, even the less fun ones. That includes grief, anger, fear. True healing happens when you are able to hold all of that and know what to do with it. But when you throw a blanket of positivity over everything, you're burying all of that trauma instead of resolving it. And you create even more inner tension. You numb out emotionally, which absolutely is going to eventually lead to a breakdown or a big explosion. You either implode it or you explode. That energy has to go somewhere. As messy as it is, as messy as life can be, sometimes the real true healing happens in the gray area, the middle, that acknowledged the light and the dark and the good and the bad. That is where shadow work, honest inner reflection, and your nervous system's regulation can then hold the frequency of the light and the dark. Think of forced positivity as you put this band aid over a wound, but you don't even bother to clean it out. It's going to look patched up on the surface, but what's underneath that band aid is going to get oozy and infected, and that infection will just keep going and going. True empowerment always comes from authentic alignment, and energy doesn't lie. Spiritual denial keeps you in these cycles that continue to perpetuate. White light absolutely can be a very shiny spiritual avoidance mechanism when used in this dogmatic sense of spiritual bypassing, like when you just think that transmuting whatever is uncomfortable into the white light is enough to solve your life struggles and rise above all of them, and thinking that you can just sidestep the messy, embodied, deeper work instead, and that's inside of your psyche. That is when it can do more harm than good. It is always going to be a spiritual avoidance mechanism if you're not also willing to sit with the trauma, the ancestral wounds, the systemic conditioning that exists within you. The white light, no matter how much of it you bring in, cannot do that work for you. What happens a lot of the time that I have seen is that whenever something that feels painful or difficult comes up, someone who would use the light to bypass in this way might say, oh, well, that's just low vibe energy, instead of feeling it, acknowledging it, and alchemizing it. So, what this does is it creates a cyclical resurgence of the same dang things happening in their lives over and over and over again, just like a track stuck on repeat. So that's one way it can happen. Another way is that the white light is used in such a way that it becomes actually disempowering. And that is when someone will actually outsource their power to all of these things outside of themselves, the white light, and they rely on these concepts that exist outside of themselves so they don't have to take responsibility, so they can avoid actually facing the depths within their own psyche and taking ownership for their own shadow material. And if you study this type of thing a lot, that it's not a very good plan for deeply healing to do that, because if you disown the uncomfortable and painful things, I guarantee that you're also suppressing so many beautiful higher aspects of who you really are. Kind of a case of, well, yeah, you can't have your cake and eat it too. The light also can be used in a way that it's a spiritual anesthetic and a bypass mechanism that is basically worthless to use this unless it's also paired with a form of actual somatic release or subconscious reprogramming on a very deep level. The white light alone isn't going to actually get all the way to it. Otherwise, no healing is happening. It's just this euphoric, feel good healing that does not address the core wound. Same goes for cord cutting, for all of these spiritual tools, really. It has to be backed up with the juice, so to speak. So the white light paradigm can be very harmful if it's used in this way, that takes away from your ability to actually do shadow work within yourself. Because in order to liberate yourself from all of those old programs, limiting beliefs, systemic conditioning, ancestral trauma, you have to own everything that's inside of you: the rage, the anger, the primal act, actions and emotions that exist. what it means to be human. If you classify all of that as unholy or unclean or dirty, then you are missing a bunch of those little fragments of information within your subconscious, and it will absolutely come back to bite you at in some other way. It absolutely will, because you're keeping that unconscious, blinding yourself out with the white light. And I have to say, there's absolutely nothing wrong with using the white light as a tool for deeper awareness. You just have to remember that liberation comes from wholeness of who you really are as a being, all of it. It doesn't come from seeing the white light as something that demands perfection from you or purity while making you feel like you need to disown the entire picture of who you are, of what it means to be a human. The dark side of love and light is pretending that everything is perfect. That is so damaging. What's happening there is there's the split. There's a split being created between reality and appearance. So then you are spending so much of your energy maintaining this illusion rather than doing the dang work. Have you ever heard that quote? It takes just as much effort to pretend you're working than to actually work. So, yeah, that would be like you go to build this new house and you keep building despite knowing that there's a huge crack in the foundation. And you just keep pretending, nope, it's fine. I'm going to keep building. The structure's fine. But then your whole house collapses because there was that foundation in the crack. This is no different. Pain buried alive never dies, it just metastasizes. One thing that really bothers me a lot about a lot of spirituality as we know it today is this pretense of perfection disguised as being spiritually astute, which is actually a trauma response. If you always try to be perfect, that's performative bullshit. And I guarantee that true deep healing is going to require conscious discomfort at some point or another. You just have to face it at some point. What's interesting though is that the actual catalyst for breakthroughs is humiliation, failure, and vulnerability. So if you're pretending like that never happens, you're literally just keeping yourself small with a shiny white glow around you, a shiny white glow covering those deep, gaping wounds. And that's where the juice is really at. Avoiding discomfort creates deeper disconnection because it reinforces the illusion that wholeness can be achieved by rejecting parts of your lived experience. When in reality, true connection to yourself, to others, and to spirit only arises through radical acceptance of yourself exactly as you are, all of who you are, by numbing, bypassing, or spiritualizing that pain, you actually will sever the vital feedback loop that discomfort provides. And that is, how do you know when it's time to heal? It mobilizes your healing. It invites you to set boundaries. It shows you where your edges are at. The wisdom that is within that juice in the wound. So, this artificial separation from reality only breeds isolation as you trade your authentic relationships with yourself, with others, for the exhausting performative bullshit of having it all together. The more you resist that discomfort, the more power you're actually giving to it. The resistance is giving it energy, exactly what you don't want, until the disowned parts of you just erupt as a self sabotage, chronic illness, or existential emptiness. That energy has to go somewhere. Real intimacy with life and with your own soul is actually created in those fires of honest engagement, not the airy fairy forced tales of toxic positivity. So, what it actually is spiritual bypassing, it's using, quote, high vibe concepts to avoid the truth of the material that is actually within your subconscious and your psyche and your shadow. It's just another form of mental escape. It leaves you feeling spiritually bankrupt and empty because you feel that dissonance. You feel that split. You feel the emptiness of the ideas and what you're saying out loud versus what is actually still happening inside of your body at a cellular level. Bypassing says, I am at peace while shaking with repressed rage. Embodiment says, I feel my anger and it teaches me boundaries. Bypassing seeks transcendence by escaping the body's mess. Embodiment seeks wholeness, the body as a sacred vessel for awakening. Bypassing fears, shadows, conflict, and discomfort. Embodiment alchemizes shadows into wisdom, conflict into clarity, discomfort into growth. True awakening is not about avoiding your truth. It is about embracing the wild, messy whole of all of you, all of life. So, how do you break free from all of this once and for all? I would venture to say that the only authentic path to actually face your darkness through shadow work. Because true illumination is not the absence of a shadow, it's the capacity to be able to hold both. When you suppress, deny, or spiritually bypass all of those unacceptable parts of you, your rage, your shame, your fears, your primal instincts. You fracture yourself and you create these inner divisions that drain your energy and manifest as self sabotage, chronic pain, existential crisis. Shadow work dismantles those illusions by reclaiming those disowned, fragmented aspects of yourself, not through analysis, but through embodied, visceral confrontation of what's really there, allowing these buried emotions to bubble on up to the surface, to let those unmet needs be vocalized by you, and to let all of that trapped energy finally move. That's where the alchemy happens. When you stop fleeing your darkness and instead sit in the fire of that, you get to discover that all of those parts of yourself that you thought were monstrous are actually suppressed power, creativity, wisdom. The best things are within those energies that you don't even want to look at right now. The shadow is not the enemy of the light, it's the unlit aspect of light itself, the raw material of transformation. By integrating all of those disowned parts of you, you will stop projecting your unresolved pain onto other people. You'll stop blaming and you'll stop the victimhood, the toxic patterns you attract into your life. That will all stop because that's all a projection that's feeding off of those unhealed aspects. You will become whole. Real liberation is not about transcending humanity, it's actually about embodying it fully, where light is not a weapon against the darkness, but it's the clarity to see, love, and direct all of who you really are. Only then does spirituality cease to be this performative performance and it actually becomes a lived, unshakable reality within you, where every emotion, every flaw, every stumble is revealed as sacred. And you feel that. The brightest light is not afraid of the dark, it emerges from it. To integrate the light and the dark for true wholeness, you first have to stop being at war with yourself. No more pretending that the anger doesn't exist or shaming when you have a desire, shaming yourself or numbing your grief in the name of being spiritual. Nothing's more spiritual than anything else. Life is spiritual. Real integration begins when you turn towards your shadows with the quality of curiosity instead of condemning it. Recognizing your darkness is not a flaw, but it's a dormant aspect of power. Then You allow yourself to fully feel that rage, the fear, the longing, not just wallowing in it, but to let those energies actually move through you like a storm system. And it clears the air. At the same time, you refuse to let those emotions define you. Instead, you witness those emotions with the light of inner awareness. It's like holding a lantern up steady in the wind. That's where the alchemy happens. When you stop labeling those parts of you as good or bad, and you start asking instead, what is this energy here to teach me? You might discover that your jealousy is what's actually guarding your boundaries. Your sadness might be something that honors how deep of a person you are, for example. Your primal instincts show you your life. Your primal instincts show you your divine creativity. True wholeness is not about balancing light and dark per se, but rather dissolving the false divide between them because there is no divide. So you no longer have to fragment yourself into spiritual versus human. You become a vessel of where all of life is allowed. It all gets to exist. And from that raw, unfiltered, present place, your highest wisdom is the natural result of that. The light is not diluted by the dark, it's amplified by it because now you walk with both feet on the earth. No more pretending, no more hiding. You really are free. Now, hypnosis, energy healing, and trauma release all work together to move you beyond the spiritual bypassing, and it allows you to directly access the subconscious and somatic layers of that energy in your physical body, where your unresolved pain and limiting beliefs are stored as an energetic pattern. The very places that affirmations and positive thinking cannot superficially reach, that's what hypnosis and energy healing allows you to rewire on a deep level that keep you, it helps you heal the patterns that keep you stuck in these cycles of self sabotage or disconnection and gently guide you into the state where real transformation can actually take root now without the resistance from the ego. Trauma is not just a story in your mind, it's a charge in your cells. Trauma release is able to clear these survival responses that were frozen in your nervous system for years, allowing fear, rage, and grief that was stuck in there, making you sick, to finally move, to finally express in a safe and embodied way. And together, these tools bridge that gap between your spiritual ideas and your human experience, which ensures that your awakening is just way more than just a mental experience. It's a felt, lived reality. Instead of bypassing your shadows with forced positivity, you get to meet them with presence and release them with the sharpest precision. You get to transform the wounds into wisdom and transform your pain into power. That's pretty amazing. So that's how you stop talking about liberation and you just go frickin' live it. So remember, you're a fully integrated human who walks in both light and dark without fear once you actually get to the bottom of this. So if you're ready to go deeper with this and you really understand this stuff and the importance of it, and you know you deserve better for yourself, for your family, your career, and you're ready to start shifting that, I fully believe in you to do this. You can do this. It does get easier. You get to a point where you clear a substantial amount of that stuff out, and you will feel so much more free to the point that you just have to keep maintaining it at that point. You no longer are carrying around a zillion pounds of crud. You aren't doomed to stay in these cycles forever either. This does take courage. I'd love to take the first step with you. So feel free to book a absolutely free gateway call with me on my website at dgtwellness.com, and I will help you identify your number one subconscious block and expose where this happens for you. And then, if it makes sense afterwards, we can talk about steps of working together in a professional sense, if that makes sense. Anyway, I hope that was helpful for you and gave you some food for thought for your awakening path today. Don't forget to like the video, comment down below, let me know what came through during this, and subscribe to the channel if you'd like. Lots of love and talk soon. Bye.